Hello everyone, this is Nox, and today I'm going to bring you the build guide to my Starcaller Slayer. This is revolving around the Starcaller Axe to proc Starfall from Cyclone, and we are Abyss stacking in order to get some damage out of the axe because it's not very great on its own. We're going to start with a map showcase. It's just going to be a T16 beach, and then we'll do a T16 Minotaur as well with Maven influence. Now it takes a little bit to ramp up. You see I only have like 4 or 5 Abyss charges now. We need to kill some things. That's part of why we have Writhing Jar. But the clear is pretty good. It's visually appealing because we have Herald of Ash in the build. Showcase some boss damage. You don't have shrine buffs or anything. There's boss damage. Let's hop into that Guardian map really quick because I think that'll be a better showcase. I clicked on that. I'm gonna grab this Diviner Strongbox as well. Maybe we'll get something cool. One time, something cool for the video? Nope. As you can tell, the clear is pretty smooth. Just roll around, spin to win. I will say that bossing, as in like you were gonna do a pinnacle boss with this, is pretty fussy. You don't really have damage until you have 15 stacks of your spirit charges, and you get those by killing stuff. We have some things in order to proc those on a boss fight, but it is kind of frustrating if I'm going to be completely transparent with you. It's not really my favorite build to boss on, but it was designed to be a mapper, so that's what I play it for. Let's kill some Minotaur here. And there's Minotaur. And the other bosses. So damage isn't too bad. All right, I will quickly go over how the character works. So we're using Starcaller Axe. We trigger a level 20 Starfall on melee critical strike. Starfall is an attack, so you need to scale it with attack damage. I decided to go with Abyss stacking mostly Fizz and crit. However, we do have some flat elemental damage as well. We are scaling Light Poacher. So gain 5% of physical damages extra of each element per spirit charge. We have 15 Abyss Jewels affecting us, so 15 spirit charges. And we are also using Shroud of the Lightless to gain 4% Ellie Pen per Abyss Jewel and 3% maximum life per Abyss Jewel. For our amulet, we're using All's Uprising. This allows us to get Hatred in the build for free. We're using a Taming just because it's a nice damage ring. And we're using Death Rush, again, nice damage ring. For our gloves, we convert some of our Fizz to cold, and we intimidate. And for our boots, we have Dance of the Offered because it gives us agnostic without having to path to it. So Light Poacher would trigger a level 20 spirit charge when you use a skill and you have a spirit charge. How do we prevent that from happening? Because if we have no spirit charges, we do not get that gain 5% of physical as extra of each element. So you could either take your life total to a very low amount, or you take your mana total to a very low amount. So Spirit Charge by default has no mana cost. However, we support the Helm itself with Archmage to give it a mana cost. And then we take Agnostic and reserve some of our life to make sure our mana is 0 at all times. Cyclone is linked to Life Tap, as is Flame Dash. So this allows us to spin infinitely, totally fine. We have Slayer Leech, so the life cost doesn't matter, and we maintain those Spirit Charges the entire time. That's the sort of core focus of the build, and then the uniques were chosen to sort of save points. Quickly going over the passive tree real quick. We path down here, we have some accuracy tattoos. We could get a little bit more accuracy. I find for general mapping it's fine, but if you find an invasive rare or something, it kind of gets frustrating where you're missing some of the time and your damage is lower. We are a Slayer. This is for Overwhelm mostly, to turn the base crit of the weapon to 8%, but you know, also have the extra damage when we've killed, extra damage against unique enemies. Slayer Overleach is nice, and we are Frenzy Charge stacking to some degree. We have a total of 6 Frenzies and 6 Endurance Charges. We are using Power Charge on crit, so we're using those charges as well. We are generating power charges with Power Charge on crit. We're generating Frenzies on kill from Disciple to Slaughter. We are generating Endurance Charges with our Merc. Starcaller itself is linked with Physical to Lightning, increased crit damage, Conk effect, elemental damage with attacks, Viscous Proj, and Hypothermia. And that pretty much covers the basics of the build. I will leave the path of building in the description below. There is a couple things you need to be aware of, however. With our auras, we have Flesh and Stone, Purity of Elements to Capres, Herald of Ash, Precision, Hatred, and Herald of Purity. In order to fit all of these auras, you need some sort of reservation efficiency. I chose Charisma because it passed by another jewel socket, which is what we want, but you also need at least 2, and hopefully I'll be able to find them. You need 2 jewels with 2% increased reservation efficiency of skills. This is so you have enough unreserved mana to make sure that Spirit Burst has a mana cost. If I took this out, this jewel, for example, I could still have all my auras active. However, Spirit Burst no longer has a mana cost, and it would just trigger when I Cyclone, which is a problem. So you need 2 jewels with 2% increased reservation efficiency. Otherwise, the build will not function, or I'm sorry, this version of the build will not function. I will have a path of building in the description below. We are maintaining our Tincture with Blood-Soaked Blade. It's very nice with Slayer Overleach. And then as far as generating spirit charges on a single target. So again, I will say it is frustrating to play this build if you're doing bossing. I would like if your primary goal is killing pinnacle bosses, this is not the build for that. It probably does enough damage for it. It's fine. It's just not comfortable to play and requires a lot of ramp time. So Writhing Jar is how we generate some of our spirit charges on a single target. So if I press this, spawns 2 worms, kill the worms, gain spirit charges. It also gives us adrenaline, which is nice. However, we also have our Merc. There's a reason why he's over here, and he's spawning out worms. And that is because he has Squirming Terror. So Squirming Terror spawns a worm every 2 seconds. The Merc, if there's no other enemy, will kill this worm pretty quickly, and that's why it's kind of frustrating. So if you're just standing there in the beginning of a boss arena, you're not going to be able to quickly kill the worm before he does. However, when you're fighting the boss, it'll just spawn right next to you. There'll be Starfalls coming down, killing the worm. You'll eventually get up to the maximum charges. As far as the rest of his gear, he's pretty basic. We keep him for determination. Also, the Vol Ancestral War Chief is nice extra damage. We have Legacy of Fury on him, and we also have Calm's Binding. And we have Perkle's Toe. Everything else is just default Merc gear that was just on him. I don't even know if this hat does anything. He is generating our endurance charges on a single target, which is very nice. I will also say that if you are going to do like a more boss focused setup with this build, which again, I would not recommend simply because of its fussiness, I would use a Assassin's Mark and Mark on Hit setup. Alternatively, you could drop the Mark on Hit and keep your Flame Dash. However, you would need to move links around in order to make room for this. So we use Assassin's Mark and Mark on Hit to generate power charges, also get additional crit, and then you come over here to grab this Mark Mastery, where you generate 10% or a chance to generate frenzy charges when you hit your marked enemy. As far as the rune graph, we do have 10% increased damage for each unlinked socket in equipped two-handed weapon. There is another one as well. It's the cooldown one. I want to see if I have it. I'll just go to the currency exchange to show it off. The rune graph of time, 20% chance for skills to not consume a cooldown on use. This is a damage increase for us, at least I believe. But I am only level 93 and getting to 94, I would just probably put it under this next life mastery here. So when you look at the path of building and you see that this life mastery is taken, it is actually this rune graph. That's why it doesn't make sense to have the life mastery otherwise. And one final thing. This is a triggered skill. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, you do need a certain amount of cooldown recovery rate in order to get to the damage you see right here. Cyclone spins pretty fast, especially when you have frenzy charges. So we need the second cooldown breakpoint. I'll put a little blurb over the screen right now, but we need to reach that 14% CDR breakpoint. We have 11% on our belt. This is just a crafted suffix. It's super easy to get. You could also do I think it's a Warlord or a Shaper belt. Both of those are viable options. And then we have cooldown recovery rate. We have 3% cooldown recovery rate here on this jewel to get us to the 14% breakpoint. And that should cover it. As far as the MTX goes, we are using the Thunderstruck helmet, body armor, and gloves. We are using Oblivion boots, Astral character effect, Annihilator weapon effect, Paladin weapon, and Divine Judgment finisher. Those are from a supporter pack. The big explosions you saw on the screen were the Celestial Herald effect. Quickly going over the cluster jewels, because I forgot to mention that. We are taking Devastator, Sure-Footed Striker, and Smite the Weak on one cluster jewel. We also take Calamitous, Brutal Infamy on the other cluster jewel. Now, we could path the Smite the Weak, but I think it would be better to get the CDR for our next few levels. I will put Path of Buildings in the description below that have a breakdown of, stages of gear. If you wanted to push this a little bit further, if you wanted to push this to level 100 or something, you totally can. I really enjoy the build. It's been a great time. I'm glad that I was able to make the axe work. It's super visually pleasing to play. It's just a really fun Cyclone build, as most of them are. So if you're into this sort of playstyle and want a mapper, strongly recommend the character. POB is in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.